You're listening to The Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
Look what we have done. We are proud of our accomplishments. Really? I can't accomplish anything without Jesus. It's not possible. And once I started taking credit for it, we read in the scriptures that believers, our works are going to be judged, whether we did it for Jesus or we did it for self. And it says that if we're doing it for self, it's wood, hay, and stubble. And right now, I already got a pretty good bonfire going, okay? I don't need to add to it.
Have you ever done something good, but you did with the wrong intentions? Maybe you helped a widow, but it was really just to get a pat on the back? Or have you ever been nice to someone because you had something to gain from them? With Jesus, it's not enough to just do good things. He will also judge you based on why you did those things. As Pastor Ken teaches us today, it's not enough to put on a good show. All the achievements you can gain won't mean anything if they weren't done for Jesus. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Revelation chapter 3 as he continues his message, The Church in Palm Beach County, Laodicea, Part 2.
This is a specific church at a specific time. But again, this is a problem that exists today in one level or another in every church, okay? There is a Laodicean movement probably within every church. That's how Satan is doing this. Anything that can destroy a church, he's going to try and find the weakest link and do whatever he can, whether he's going to make them more Ephesian-like or more Laodicean-like, just as long as they're not like Smyrna or Philadelphia, okay? Because those are dangerous churches. He doesn't want dangerous Christians. He wants Christians who are happy and don't say anything about Jesus to anyone. And unfortunately, according to Barna, that's like 45% of most believers now. They won't even talk about Jesus at all. But again, a specific church, and this is an issue with control between what is Philadelphia versus what is Laodicea. And so you'll see elements of it in every church. That's why if you visit churches, like a lot of people do at Christmas time, you sit in the church and you go, well, that's kind of weird. Or, wow, why can't they do that back home? But remember, there are elements of all of this in every church. Now, yes, there are fallen divine beings who want to destroy the work of God in the church. They are at war with us, and they will not stand at anything to try and achieve their purpose. They will do whatever they can and find whoever the weakest link is. They're testing all of us to find that weak link. And when I say us, I'm talking about staff members too, okay? They're testing everyone all the time because we have to remember what it says in Ephesians 6:12. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, okay? It's against spiritual powers. It talks about this. Against the rulers, these are ranks of divine fallen angels. Against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. That's who the battle is with. It's not against one specific individual or one clique of people or one group or one particular teacher or whatever. It's against the enemy because he's the motivator behind that. There are fallen divine beings searching within the body of every church as well as the staff of every church to find the weakest link. And if they can find that weak link to be someone who is a lead pastor or a megachurch lead pastor, and he can make them fall, we'll read about it in the paper. And we've read about that in the paper in churches in this area within the last 10 years. It's unfortunate, but it happens. It goes on. That's because we have a true enemy out there who, for pastors, usually he goes after three things. He either goes after, depending upon who the pastor is, guys, gals, gold, or glory. It's one of those. And if he can make them fall in one of those areas, then Satan's won. 2 Peter 2, verses 1 to 3, Peter tells us what the church in the last days is going to look like. And this is one of the things we have to guard against today because we're getting this warning. But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will also be false teachers among you. Now, if he could have a parenthesis in there that said, see Acts 17:11, he would. Okay, Acts 17:11 is the scriptures that tell us we need to test everything that we hear by the Word of God. Listen to it, write it down, take notes about it, and then check it out to see if it's true. That is the Bible's way of saying don't trust anything that Ken tells you. Check it out for yourself. Please do. I mean, I really don't want to add anything or subtract anything from the scriptures. But that's the problem. We have people now who will say, I've had a word from God. Really? I have a whole lot of words from God. What did you get that's different and new? Because everything I need to know is right here in this book. He gave it to me. Gave it to all of us. But getting back to Peter, it says they're going to secretly introduce destructive heresies. And they are. And they have. And they continue to do so. Even denying the master who bought them. There's a whole group that say that Jesus was not really the God, that he really was just a man, he was just a good teacher, and yet they still want to be called a church. And I'm going like, you're not even Christians. What are you talking about? Many will follow their sensuality, and because of them, the way of the truth will be maligned. And that's what we've seen. People following what they want to do, their own sensuality, and God's truth gets maligned as a result. And in their greed, they will exploit you with false words. My favorite is the television evangelist I watched one morning in Dallas, Texas, when I was on business. And this guy comes on the TV, and I'm trying to get ready to go to work. And he's sitting there telling me that on the television that there's somebody out there in a hotel in Dallas that if he would just donate $100, it would turn into $1 million. And I'm going like, yeah, right. And I immediately thought of 2 Peter chapter 2, because it says, in their greed, they will exploit you with false words. And they do. They absolutely do. Their judgment from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. So let's talk about this question. Who can be compromised? Who can be sold? And when we take a look at it today, within the church, this is some things that you see happening. Who can be sold the latest church growth program, which excludes prayer and the moving of the Holy Spirit, and is totally based on market-driven metrics? What do the people want? Go door to door. Find out what people are looking for in a church and then replicate that. Okay, so if we start doing that, I'll make sure that we have poinsettias and Easter lilies lined up right here so that you feel comfortable, since a lot of people who come to church only come twice a year. And we'll have other things, you'll make sure we have lots of cookies or whatever it is, and we'll make sure that we don't mention sin, we don't mention anything that might make you uncomfortable. That's a church growth method that's actually being touted in some cases. Who can they find that's influential and can move the church away from what the primary task is? The primary task of the church is to make disciples. That's what we're supposed to do. And you start wondering, here we try to pray about everything before we make decisions, but sometimes you forget to do that and you make a decision, and afterwards you're going like, well, was that the right decision, Lord? I actually worked for a guy who was base commander in Kuwait, who, before he would start the staff meeting, he would always pray for all of us first, and then pray that the decisions were good. And as long as he was there, they were good decisions, and the enemy never attacked us. And as soon as he transferred out, I had all kinds of trouble, but that's a different issue. That's when all of a sudden we started getting shot at, and missiles thrown over the wire, and it's just. But he was praying every meeting. And that's the way it should be in the church. Now, that wasn't the church. That was in the United States Air Force, okay? But, yeah, Jesus is all over the place. And people do follow what he wants. But, again, how many decisions are truly based on prayer? Peter tells us in 2 Peter chapter 3 that the downward slide begins when we start questioning the validity of the second coming of Jesus. There's a lot of folks right now who do that too because they're tired of waiting. So they're saying, well, then he's not coming. But the moment we start questioning the validity of the second coming of Jesus and we move to the theory of uniformitarianism, which basically says it's been like this all the time and it's never going to change, you wind up denying the flood, or you wind up denying creation, and guess where you are? You're in the 21st century in West Palm Beach. or Palm Beach County or Martin County. That's where we are. Most of the church today has rejected the supernatural. The 22 weeks that we spent talking about the unseen realm, most churches wouldn't even talk about, because they reject the supernatural. They reject the fact that there's anything supernatural about this book. It's all natural. We're into what took place around 1700, and we say, oh, well, the whole world's like that. Well, it's not. All you got to do is go to the mission field someplace like Irian Jaya or South America in certain areas, Africa. You'll find out very quickly that the supernatural is alive and well. But the church, the 21st century church in the West, yeah, it's okay with things being the way they are now, and forget the supernatural. We don't want that. What churches tend to want to do today is get along with the culture, deal with social justice issues. By the way, if we're making disciples and we're turning people into being more like Jesus, guess what tends to be cured? Social justice issues. You have people who, like William Wilberforce in the early 1800s, who railed against slavery and stopped it. Why? Because he was a believer in Jesus Christ. That's why. 1700s. I messed it up by a century. But that's what it is. Believers are the ones who cause social justice. Not going out and doing that intentionally. It's just living the life of Jesus Christ. But if we are more about social justice issues rather than the issues that we all deal with, which is sin and its perverse hold on us, and the fact that only Jesus can free us from that, then we got a problem. The question the Bible answers is a question that people are asking today. How should we live? And it has the answers. It tells us how to live, how we should operate. This is the operating manual given to us by the manufacturer. He made us, and he gave us instructions as to how we should operate and how we should live. Why? Because he knows what's best for us. He made us. But that's not the case everywhere. The Bible has the answer. No one wants to hear it because the Bible requires the use of a scalpel to cut away those things we don't like. And sometimes those hurt because we've fallen in love with certain things and we don't want to put it away from us. The Laodiceans actually professed Christianity, but they were self-complacent and self-satisfied. They were okay. They were unconscious that they were wholly or all but wholly out of communion with Christ. It's in verse 20. At all events, they felt no need of repentance. Didn't need it. Didn't need it at all. So we get the startling declaration in verse 15 that, the absolute rejection of religion, being a complete atheist, being a non-Christian to Jesus, is more preferable than what the Laodiceans are doing. Jesus says that. We'll get to it. As a church and as individuals, they have dwelt with complacency on what they have achieved. Look what we have done. We are proud of our accomplishments. Really? I can't accomplish anything without Jesus. It's not possible. And once I started taking credit for it, we read in the scriptures that believers, our works are going to be judged, whether we did it for Jesus or we did it for self. And it says that if we're doing it for self, it's wood, hay, and stubble. And right now, I already got a pretty good bonfire going, okay? I don't need to add to it. I really don't. But the church of Laodicea, let's put it this way, they're unconscious. They know what needs to be done, and you'll see churches around us today, same way. They know what needs to be done, they won't do it. They won't do it. And there's reasons for that. Some examples of Laodicean creep. That's what I'm calling that. It's kind of like, how is Laodicea creeping into the church today? George Barna, who is a statistician, he does surveys, wrote a book recently, and what he indicated is one of the things that he's seeing with churches is that most churches have dropped their midweek Bible study. They don't do it anymore. Oh, and by the way, they've also dropped Sunday night Bible study, and they've cut back Sunday morning to 30 minutes, and they're trying to make it comfortable for people to come to church. Most churches have eliminated, this is George Barna, looking at the data and coming to a conclusion, most churches have eliminated their Sunday or Wednesday evening services. Many have scratched both. In most churches, these events have been replaced by small groups that meet in people's homes, but attendance in those gatherings has dropped from 23% to just 10% in the past decade. And further, Christians across the nation indicate that the emphasis in these meetings is community rather than being taught the Bible. I mean, I've been involved in small groups where we're talking about the Bible, teaching the Bible, and getting in a small group able to talk about some of those things that you struggle with. But that's kind of hard for some people. They would rather talk about what my cookie recipe is. And if you don't want to know my cookie recipe, it's basically get Oreos, open the top, take one out. Talk to my wife, she'll tell you that's true. Okay? The way we have done church in the past, the way we've done church the last 200-300 years, and we're still doing it that way. The reason why they rang the bell at church was to get everybody out of the field, saying, hey, it's time to come to church, get out of the field, come in here for a while, and then you can go back out in the field. It's failing. The way we've done church in the past, because now we have the internet, we have television, we have radio, we have instantaneous communications, we can tell people what we think about something that we're hearing instantly with Twitter or with Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And the way we did church in the past is just not working anymore. And in order to prop up the way we've done church in the past, remember, we're talking about a lot of churches out there that have these huge buildings that are based on a model that started around 1750. And people still think that's the way we're going to do it in the future. And the problem is, how do you do that when you can watch it on television or on the internet? I mean, I can't go to church today. I'm not feeling well. I'll watch it on the computer. You couldn't talk about that 10 years ago, but you can today. What churches do is they produce ways to attract people back into the building and give programs that are not the wrong solution, but they may not meet the needs of people. So you're seeing churches, and many of them large ones, that have moved from teaching the Word to entertaining the masses. Why? Because there's debt that has to be paid. I remember talking to a pastor 20 years ago, and he said, if I want church growth to take place, all I have to do is start a building program. And I'm going like, that's not the way you grow a church. And what his church model was, I call it the theft model. If I'm building something, then somebody who's not building will lose members to me because I'm building something. Then they'll turn around and build something and they'll steal them from me. So I have to have the best bells and whistles, and that's churchianity. We'll talk about that. That's not being believers. We've lost our way. Churches, like the Laodicean church, lost their way. They are no longer discipling. They've lost the call of Jesus, and now they're entertaining folks. And repentance, they never talk about it. Not an issue to them. Since they're not believers, why should they repent? They feel good about themselves. I'm okay, you're okay. The guy's so-so, but we're all right. There are a lot of good church growth models out there. Some of them are great for growing a church that's of people who are on fire for the Lord. But there are, again, the theft models, and we just referenced one. There's also a feel-good model. That one came out of a group of believers in Chicago, and it was reintroduced also in Southern California, and it's been taught over and over again this is how you grow a church. No, it isn't, because Jesus is not the center of it. And then here's the big question. How do you reach a digital generation? I used to deal with this at work all the time. We have people who love paper and worked in paper. They're leaving, and now you have people who have only worked with this. And how do you work with that? How do you provide information? How do you make sure that that information's there? I mean, some of the things that we've talked about doing is making the notes available so that if you're using an electronic device, you have my notes immediately on the device as I'm going through it. At the same time that it's being broadcast or podcasted to folks who can't be here, either in audio or video. And these are not cheap technologies, but this is the kind of stuff that you can do. And then it could even be to the point where you could put your questions down and shoot your questions. I could actually see your questions in real time and maybe have an opportunity to deal with them. This is more of where I think we probably should be going. But the problem is, though, it takes money, and you got to have everybody on board with that. And it's kind of tough. But it's easier for a lot of the really large churches to not worry about that. Just entertain. And that's the model in many cases. The church in Laodicea thought they were going the right way, okay? They thought they were going in the right direction by looking just like the culture. How many churches do we know of today that try to look just like the culture? I know of at least 3 or 4 in the immediate area, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that other than the fact that where's Jesus in the process? The Laodicean church, though, lost the primary mission. Somewhere in the process of looking like the culture, they forgot all about the primary mission of making disciples. So if this is a picture of the 21st century church, and it is, how do we as the 21st century church morph into what it is that will communicate the Word of God effectively, do so in a manner that reaches all generations at the same time, and yet be true to what God's Word says so that we can reach those folks who are comfortable with a digital format as well as those who would prefer to have things with paper. And then there are some who don't want either one. Just tell me about it, let me listen, and and I'll remember it. There are people like that too. Do we continue to do church as we always have? Okay? And this is what the Laodiceans were facing. They had a lot of money. They asked the question, do we continue to do churches the way we have? And they became part of the culture. This is a question being asked by churches today. Do we continue to do church as we always have, or do we begin looking for more ways to communicate truth? So you have churches that do multi-campus approaches. I'm not so sure that's the right thing. You have churches that are virtually almost all electronic, and they have very few places for people to sit. Everything's electronic. I don't know where the mix is. The danger, though, as we look for and implement new technology and processes into what we do to reach people for Jesus Christ, is we have to keep our eyes firmly on Matthew 28:19. That's the mission. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I don't know if that means I put water in the back of my pickup truck and drive to houses where people say they gave their life to Christ, and I have a mobile baptizing unit, and we stop and we baptize you there and put it on the internet, and then we go to the next house. Don't laugh. I've actually thought about that. Okay, that's bad enough. I'm going, why not? My son's involved with a church plant in Texas, and they use a stock pond, okay? They take a big piece of aluminum that normally cows drink out of, they put it there, and then we'll baptize you here. Water might be a little cold, but hey, it's water. That's the mission of the church. That's what we do. 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3 and 4. Let no one in any way deceive you. And we have to be told this because we're so easily deceived, and that's the name of the game today, is deceive people. Get them to think that they're doing the right thing, and they're not. For it will not come, the end of the age, okay? The second coming of Christ. It will not come unless the apostasy comes first. So what's that? That means a turning away from Jesus Christ. And we're seeing that happen all over the place. It's just amazing to me, if you take a look at the kinds of materials that are available, how many people are turning from Christ. The apostasy comes first. The man of lawlessness is revealed. Don't worry, I'm not going to guess who the Antichrist is. We're not going to be here when that happens, okay? But there are a lot of people who write books about that, and it wasn't Adolf Hitler, it wasn't Adolf Eichmann, it wasn't Eisenhower, it wasn't MacArthur, it's not going to be Donald Trump. So, we're okay. But do we see this happening today? The apostasy. Yeah, everywhere. People are slowly moving away, and in some cases not so slowly moving away from Jesus Christ to entertaining. They talk about the Lord, but they never do anything about it.
Today's message was in the book of Revelation. Pastor Ken has been teaching from this prophetic book here on the Unsafe Bible. You hear often about people trying to predict the end of the world or referring to some kind of apocalyptic event. But the truth is, the real apocalypse or revelation of Jesus Christ is something unlike anything else. If you know Jesus, you see these events as something that God will bring about to eventually restore things to how they were meant to be. If you view God as an enemy, you would naturally perceive the events in Revelation as some foreign enemy seeking to wreak havoc on the world and bring it to ruin. So what's the truth? If you're curious about what we believe and what our core foundation is built on, go to theunsafebible.com to learn more. Are you in the Jupiter, Florida area? If so, you're welcome to join us for these types of teachings in person. You'll find ways to contact us on our website, so you can learn when and where we meet each week. You can also access more teachings online by going to theunsafebible.com and looking under the Media tab. Catch up on any messages you've missed, or listen to one you already heard as a refresher. Once again, that's theunsafebible.com. We're so glad you took the time today to hear from God and His Word. Pastor Ken has more to share from the book of Revelation, so don't miss a single edition. In the meantime, continue growing on your own in this very peculiar book of the Bible. And join us again on the Unsafe Bible.